Hi everyone, and welcome to Brain Fruits, the podcast from women changemakers. You can listen to Brain Fruits on all major streaming platforms, Apple Podcast, YouTube, and Spotify. I'm your host, Hannah Becker, and today I have the great pleasure to introduce you, Mariana Keymolen. Mariana is a proud Latina industrial designer from the US. Her goal is to inspire young Latina girls to dream big and go for STEM careers. She found her entrepreneurial interest in the FemTech industry and works towards inspiring others to start their own company. Whether it's cross-stitching or baking a cake, you can usually find her creating something. Welcome, Mariana.
Hi, thank you for having me, Hannah.
It's just so exciting, really. Mariana, when I read your bio, I got so curious about what FemTech is. Can you maybe tell us a little bit more about your background and choice to become involved in FemTech?
Yeah, so it's funny because I'm actually studying industrial design, soon to be graduating. And if you know what that is, it's the designing products or services or apps that can pretty much be anything, right? That could be like a Tesla or an app to track your menstrual cycle or chairs. It's a variety of things. So the good thing is you can find a lot of jobs. But the thing was that there was a FemTech innovation challenge that my school hosted, and I had never even heard of the word FemTech. So
No, me neither.
Yeah, so FemTech means products and services for women's health and wellness. And that can be a lot of things, really. So I heard about it, and my friend kind of pushed me to go and attend it. And what it basically was a 3-day hackathon where you got with other students and you created this, well, you saw a problem, you created a solution, and your startup in like 3 days. And you got to speak to mentors and get feedback, make a business plan, say, this is how we're going to do traction. So this was all really new to me because that isn't really taught for specifically design. So that's when I found out about FemTech, and why I loved it, I guess, was because, the thing is that women's needs were kind of on the back burner and sometimes even forgotten. And if they were being designed for, it was by men. So that was pretty crazy to me that women were still struggling with some things and they hadn't even been put in the process of the design for them.
That's so odd. I mean, it's like men designing something for your menstrual circle would seem a little bit counterintuitive, I guess. Looking at the FemTech market, I saw a recent study by Emergent Research that suggested that the market is to reach sky-high levels. So I think you're in a pretty good, going in a pretty good direction here. They say that this market is going to reach up to US dollars 60 billion by 2027. Can you explain to me what the major driver behind that growth really is?
Yes. So I think it's two things really, but the first one would be just bringing that awareness. And it's not that people weren't aware, but it wasn't being really like pushed by other women. So getting women to actually stand up and say, hey, we need innovation in these areas. And then, you have to listen to a community, right? Won't really listen to one person, but once it's like this huge mass, we're half of the population of the world. So I think we're pretty important, especially since we are give birth to males and females. So that, and then plus there is this need for more women to be investing. So now that we're seeing more women in the professional world and women that are actually investing, we get to actually fund these companies, whereas back then, maybe 5 or 10 years ago, they were all men that you were pitching to, so you probably were not having high chances of getting funded.
Having a look at your impressive portfolio of innovative industrial designs, you show a so-called Tribe breast pump with an app for postpartum.
Right,
what is postpartum about, and how does this Tribe breast pump help?
Yes, so this is our senior thesis, and we were allowed to pick any topic. And since I'm already interested in FemTech, I wanted to dive into postpartum, which is, the time period after a woman has given birth. And it's actually defined up to a year after the birth. So I got the book called The Fourth Trimester. So you see like the play of words there, because it's not really a trimester. Because I wanted to read about the experience, and it's been kind of a stigmatized area in their life, where it's like you should be super happy and have all control over your life and your baby. But at the same time, they have all these social issues, right? Society pressures, and having to understand all the changes that their body is having while taking care of the baby as well, a human that they just like gave birth to. So it can be a lot of things while people expecting you to be happy. And I wanted to see how could I prevent so PPD is called postpartum depression, and then PPA is postpartum anxiety. So I wanted to see how I could focus on preventing those and other mental health disorders. So I took that, I did research, and so my current internship, my bosses are the age where their friends are either getting married or having kids. So that was like direct link to women that I needed to talk to. So I talked to these women. Most of them had some experience of anxiety and also depression. And from then on, I learned about their life. And it's funny because I went into this project thinking, oh, I'll probably make a system to where it's educating them about the disorders. But actually, they were just telling me that the two biggest things that affected them were their like lactation, so issues with lactation and breastfeeding, and then the biggest one was not having a mom tribe, like a tribe of people that they could fall back on and support. And it's not
what is this mom tribe exactly about?
Yeah.
Like why did you call it a tribe? That sounds very indigenous to some extent. Like I almost picture women fighting for something together or living together in a tribe.
What they meant was just a group of women that they could fall back on. And it's funny because maybe they did want it, or they did think they would need it, but because they are pressured to, handle all of it on their own, they didn't ask for it. They didn't prepare to have that group of moms. So in the app, what I did was, so compared to the competition, if you download a mom app, you get to connect with like 400 plus women and tons of forums that will only lead you to become overwhelmed and probably more depressed and anxious. So my design would be very limited. So you have a more personal and intimate group of moms, so 12, and you can only have up to 4 of those groups. So in this way, you're not being bombarded with every question that you have to them. Your app can connect to any smartwatch, so it would track your stress. And if you are stressed, or it notices that you're getting a bit stressed, it will take you through a paced breathing session before even asking, hey, do you want to talk to someone?
I really love this aspect of giving a bit more power back to the actual user of the app. I think that is a great competitive edge, definitely. Mm-hmm. Talking about paced breathing, you have you have even designed another app on sexual education called Birdhouse. What is Birdhouse about?
So Birdhouse is a project pretty dear to me because as a child, of an immigrant family, a family that, the culture doesn't really push towards having open conversations about taboo topics such as sex and contraception, that lack of conversation could lead to negative impacts, right? But just because the parents didn't want to talk about it, or it just wasn't a thing. So what I wanted to see was there a way that I could make the parent or a confidant have more discussions about this with the teen? Because really, there isn't much I could do in the school, like the education system. Some states don't require it, some states require it and then don't even touch birth control. So I wanted to see what I could do inside the home or inside a safe place. I knew I needed to be careful because I didn't want to just give them an app that they would stare at. I wanted the end goal to be them two getting together and discussing.
It's such an important topic. It's incredible. Do you believe that in the future, all kinds of education can be delivered via technology? Is that how you would envision future sexual education, or do you see some drawbacks maybe with that approach?
I do think there are some drawbacks. I think there must be a component of discussion or another human being to relate to, right? Someone who's already lived through it. But if that person is on the other side of the screen, then that could work.
What are the immediate responses you get from your community?
Yeah, so it's funny because I do post about these things on Facebook, and a lot of my, family friends are Spanish speaking, and it has happened that they are saying, "Hey, I saw you posted this thing, and can you translate it? I really want to know what you're talking about," or "I really like that you're going into women's health." And I've got these my mentors that are 50-year-olds reading what I'm talking about, and some of these things would probably be oh, that's a little too taboo, but they are pretty supportive, and I think they really enjoy that this younger generation is trying to really talk about everything.
Do you have anything that you can recommend of how to deal with criticism or stigma or denial when you talk about sexual education?
Just because it wasn't being talked about or isn't normally talked about, it shouldn't mean it should stay that way, right? Everyone is a human and goes through different stages of life, and there's no reason why you shouldn't delve into those and see how you can make them better for the next generation. And in terms of strategies for setbacks or I was a child who knew that I wanted to go to college, but I didn't have a dream school because no one had, I didn't have an older sibling that had gone to college. There was no family school. So when I found that industrial design was actually at the University of Houston, and I told my other smart peers, they kind of, made me feel like I was not going to a great school or whatever, because I could pretty much go to whichever I really wanted. But that was the only ID program in my home in Texas. So that really just seemed like the way to go. It was going to be a free ride, and it was going to be a great program. And I told my teacher about how they reacted to what I told them, and he said to just not worry about it. Just knowing that you have a mentor, and just make sure that you don't let people hold you back. It's really your life, and if you enjoy it and if it guides you to your next big step, then that's all really matters.
Yeah, I think these mentors can have a tremendously good impact on our future career path, because sometimes it's true, as you say, our immediate community might not respond to our visions or our dreams in a way that we expected, right? And especially being of a younger age, it might be a bit tricky to just still go ahead and pursue what you really want to do.
Yeah.
Can you, besides from finding a good mentor and having some good strategies to just not stop going, is there something inherent in you that you just say, okay, this is me and this is why I am successful?
There's this thing about doing work and having that reward aspect. Sometimes you can get lost in a bunch of work, right? But when I'm working on a project and then I see it in its final stage, it's so rewarding. Same thing when I pitch to investors or for a competition, that rush feeling of oh my gosh, I'm about to pitch, and then I finish with a big smile. I think just seeing what you enjoy and seeing what gives you that rush is what will keep you going.
I like that recommendation a lot, to just try out different things and take the joy in the final project. I think that's a really great approach to life in general. Do you have some other certain problem-solving approach that you use whenever you start designing your products as an entrepreneur?
So in terms of problem solving, I like to include the users as much as I can. So even trying to, COVID has made this a little hard, but trying to say, hey, what do you think about this design? And maybe you even give them paper and they draw on top of it, or they write their notes. It doesn't, a designer cannot do everything on their own, and they definitely can't design for others by themselves. So really talking to the stakeholders and including them in the process.
That sounds really agile, actually. I think that's how you would call it in modern terms, to be very close to the user It's funny because that's such a buzzword nowadays, right? Everyone is working Scrum and Agile. Do you use any design thinking methods when you try to design your product? So when you think about a specific problem that your product could address?
So it depends on what type of problem. So for example, if it's something that's focused on children, I like to incorporate play. And they have this saying of think like a child. So a child could see a cup, but then like flip it upside down and suddenly it's a hat. So thinking like a child and seeing how you can see things differently, how you can take something from one industry that is like completely different and bringing it into another one.
Yeah, this play aspect. I mean, this is even something that they bring out into big organizations. So very, very nice, very nice alliteration. Is there any of these products that you have on your portfolio that came up that you specifically designed for children?
Yes, actually, it's called experiorp, and so I wanted to focus on children who have struggles with eating certain types of foods of a different color or a smell or taste. And I saw that these children had to go to a therapy once a week. However, parents had trouble repeating or doing the therapy at the house. So basically their progress is set back, right? Their progress is once a week. And I wanted to see if I could speed up that progress. And so what I realized after talking to occupational therapists was that the storytelling aspect was very successful in their sessions. So the ladies would, make celery castles with them and like draw with peanut butter. So what I did was try to incorporate that play into a set that could let the child do the therapy on their own with almost no help from the parent.
I mean, going from drawing with peanut butter to designing a product specifically designed for kids with this certain type of eating disorder, that's very impressive. What are the brain foods that you would like to share with our brain foods community today? Maybe you have a specific mindset or some success enablers, strategies to deal with flops and setbacks. We're super curious to hear about them.
Yes, this is probably one for your like younger side of your community or listeners. There's this thing about not really believing in yourself that I think needs to kind of be hacked down because, whether it's a scholarship or a job opportunity, it can be really easy to think, oh, well, there's 20 other people doing the same thing. I'm not even going to get it. So why should I try? And it's funny because everyone else is thinking the same thing. So I'll give you an example. There was a scholarship that my high school was going to give to just one student. And I applied and I got it because no one else applied. So, like you should really just not sell yourself short and go for every opportunity. If it doesn't happen, it just wasn't meant to be, but maybe the next one was meant to be.
Definitely. I think this courageousness is something also that we need to foster in younger generations. And as you say, like this doubt to just kind of break it down, not to go into it so much more. But your example is really striking. I mean, how can it be that no one else applied for the scholarship?
Just believing in yourself. And I think some people might think that, posting about your successes is somehow, arrogant or whatever, but it doesn't have to be. As long as, you're just showing that you're happy of what you accomplished and you're not bringing down other people, I think every single accomplishment should be shared and cherished.
I love that, especially this sharing aspect of it. It's not about one person being great. It's more about sharing it with others, because I think that in the end makes a human happy, right? Is sharing success. If we wouldn't be able to share any accomplishments, then there would be no accomplishment. Thank you so much, Mariana, for your time and for being a podcast guest here for Brain Fruits. It's been lovely to have you. Thank you so much.
I enjoyed it. Thank you.